Hello, beautiful Facebook fan bam. It's Emily Diamond. Just got back from a walk, and on the last bit of my walk, I was doing some reflecting. Oh, and check out my awesome Galaxy tights. Woo! I love these. Love them. So I wanted to pop in and talk about a really important distinction, coaching distinction that came up this week with one of my business leader clients. So they run a large international business and spend a lot of time between different locations, and you know, on all fronts, this is a highly effective person. So they run a large company, they have a beautiful, loving family, they've created all these incredible opportunities for not just the people that work in their business and their family, but the products and services that their company makes make a really lovely ethical impact on the world, which is just, oh my gosh, ticking all the boxes. Really beautiful story, really beautiful person to work with. Okay, and they have an overdeveloped, very, very strong conscience. Okay, and I love working with people with a really strong sense of conscience. Obviously, I have criteria around which businesses that I work with, and they have to do some sort of contribution to society, because it's like, what's the point of helping businesses make more money if they're not making an impact on the world? So they tick that box absolutely with the products and services that they do and the type of people that they employ, and yeah, there's a beautiful circular effect. And they were bringing up a very important point, and it's to do with how we respond to our past failures as leaders, and how we then take those past failures out there into the future, and what we do with them. And the emotional feedback, I've just done a bit of banging on this morning about emotional feedback, and this is what triggered the reflection or the thought, is we get emotional feedback even more intensely when we have a really strong conscience, or we have overdeveloped senses of ethics and morals. And that is a beautiful thing. That is absolutely a beautiful thing. And we all have a different moral and ethical code. We all have a different framework through conditioning, through life experience, through opportunities, through our education. All of these things from our past influence what's the code that we use. Now, he's got a very sensitized and overdeveloped one. And he was talking to me about how, as leaders, no matter what, we take responsibility. So if it happened on our watch, it had something to do with us. If it happened with our team, it had something to do with us. Whether or not we directly as individuals are to blame or are guilty or it's our fault, hi to the people joining us, thank you. That's a leadership assumption that we operate from, which is, if it happened on my watch, it's got something to do with me. Now, this is very important to enable us to be empowered as a leader. We have to understand the time zone with which we apply this to. Am I applying it's got something to do with me, as in I caused this result? Or are we taking on it's got something to do with me, as in, if I have now seen it, I am going to take responsibility for this moving forward and ensuring that it doesn't happen again. Hi there. Thanks for the people joining us. Thank you. Okay, so the concept he was talking about, he watched one of those Will Smith awesome live videos, and Will Smith is such a charismatic, incredible influencer and leader. If you haven't watched his videos, I would encourage you to, and I don't claim to be on the same kind of level in terms of effectiveness and charisma as someone like a Will Smith, but Will Smith does a video about the differences between blame and shame and responsibility. And in coaching, in the particular veins that I use, we have a concept around cause, okay, which is stepping us out of the paradigm of blame and shame and guilt, because we want the feedback of those emotions, okay? But when we've got an oversensitized ethical code, we will get feedback of blame, shame, and guilt as a past references, and these things that happened, I'm to blame for. These things that happened, I'm guilty of them. These things that happened, they're on my watch, therefore I should feel bad about them. And that's feedback, but most of us, remember, we don't effectively respond to feedback. We repress it, we react, we avoid those sensations as much as possible. And particularly with blame and shame and guilt, we will often go into cycles of self-punishment, okay? So very important thing that happened is he was sharing about, I watched this video from Will Smith, blah, blah, blah. And you know, I have to be responsible. And I'm like, absolutely, you need to be responsible. And then within like half a minute, he was talking about how he was to blame for something. And so learning about these concepts is so incredibly powerful, but learning about them won't change how you're wired. That only happens through really conscious conditioning or unconscious change processes, which is why this guy's switched on and smart enough and he has a coach to do that work with him, where we consciously coach and we do unconscious transformational process. So it's so awesome. Like, it's like, this concept is so exciting, but I can't stop myself doing the behavior that this concept is talking about. That's one of the traps that we experience ourselves in. And when we talk about this concept of being responsible, when we teach this concept around cause, we teach how to be aware of when you're doing blame, shame, and guilt instead of responsible, ways of addressing situations, ways of structuring communication, ways of structuring your perception that actually break you through those patterns and stop those patterns, which is exciting. So that's what he and I are working on now. Because just knowing it doesn't change it. Just knowing it doesn't make the difference. And that's one of the most maddening things about being a human, isn't it? Is that knowing doesn't make the difference. What we know is real learning is when the behavior changes. And that's one of my favorite things that I say, which is it's not really learning if the behavior does not change. That's what I hold myself to. It's what I hold my clients to. We measure on behavior. Okay. Because whether the behavior is conscious, unconscious, it doesn't matter. It's still behavior, okay? It's still what's interacting with reality. It's still what's going to have the highest probability of getting you a result, okay? So when we teach the concept of cause, we talk a lot about responsibility and responses. And for those of you who've watched my emotional leadership series or seen me talk about emotional feedback before, we're ultimately saying that the goal is to be in a response state where things happen and then we've got the conscious awareness and the capacity to respond with our higher brain functions, with our consciousness, versus have reactions from the past or just repress and be like, I can't even feel that, I'm not allowed to feel that, or I'm too stressed to deal with that. So we are looking at this state of response. And cheekily and conveniently, most of you probably made this connection already, that there is a very big correlation between the word response and the word responsibility. And we do like to break it down, and it is a cliche, and you know, so much linguistic work is a cliche, and too bad. I love puns, I love language, it's the fabric of human experience. There's so much power and truth in it, just like my client being like, I need to be responsible, but then within half a minute later talking about how he's to blame for things. That language, talking that way, behaving that way, tells us so much, okay? It's so deeply telling. But yeah, let's just enjoy the cliche of it, that responsibility, I'll say it again, responsibility, my ability to respond to what's happening in my environment, your ability to respond to what's happening in your environment, my beautiful client's ability to respond to what's happening in his company, our ability to respond to our loved ones, our ability to respond with our communication the way we want to, our ability to make very deliberate choices, to plan, to focus, to set intention, our ability to respond in ways that fulfills on our intentions, our ability to fulfill on our plans that give us, again, this highest probability of producing the result we want. That's our power. That's our magic. That's humans when we are self-actualized, when we are in our frontal lobe, we're in our higher brain functions, when we are responding. Now, if you haven't designed a future that you consciously want, it's hard for us to say that we are responding in a way that aligns to that design, that aligns to that future. It's just harder. Instead, we'll just be responding based on past experience. Now, if someone has been able to break through into new behaviors and new responses such that they are responding consciously, good for you. I don't care whether you're doing it from your past experience and you haven't yet moved into doing it from future intentions and future goals and plans yet. I don't care. you already get the gold star. You already are an elite performer. You're already a highly effective human being if you are responding instead of reacting and instead of repressing. And I want to acknowledge you and point out that that already is an incredible process and takes incredible growth and awareness and dedication. So good for you. And if that's all you're doing, responding, but responding from past experience, you should be delighted, and you should take a moment to reward yourself and congratulate yourself and roll around in that. Just roll around in that, enjoy that, love that, give back a bit of positive feedback to yourself, because that would have taken a shit ton of effort. And I know, because it took me a shit ton of effort, and every single person that I work with, it takes dedication and absolute deliberate focus and intention. It takes sacrificing other things. It takes confronting your fears. It takes coming up against yourself and everything that tells you that that's not safe and it's not okay and you shouldn't be doing that and you're selfish or you're self-involved, whatever. It has taken something. And then the next step for you is just to do design work. It's just so beautiful. For those of you who are doing the work of consciously designing your future and then learning to respond from that conscious design, that is the next level up. And that is, you know, at the same time, it's thrilling and it's scary, and big gold star to you too. Roll around in that. Take a moment to reflect, rest, reward yourself. You deserve it. That is not normal. You are someone who's out there turning yourself around so that you can make a bigger impact on the world. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to sign off now. I'm going to go see a movie that I have been desperately anticipating to see. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And have some beautiful family time, some rest time. Yeah, all right. Well, I love you all. Okay, I'll speak to you guys soon. Have a great weekend.